We are your mediators today, and we want to thank you for choosing Peer Mediation.
Here at the Western Justice Center, we work with smaller groups of students to train them as mediators so that when other students on campus have conflicts with one another, they can come to these mediators and go through a process where they can peacefully resolve their conflicts in a satisfying way for everyone involved. The three most important things that people should remember about mediation: one, it's voluntary.
Well, thank you guys for being here today. As you know, peer mediation is completely voluntary, so we appreciate the fact that you decided to take this option.
The second thing is that it is impartial.
We wanted to also let you know that we won't be taking sides as you guys decide.
Let them know they're going to have equal opportunity to speak about the issues.
You get a chance to say your side, and you get a chance to say your side, and then we'll work on coming to an agreement.
The third thing is that it's confidential.
Everything that is said here will stay here, and we also hope that you guys agree to leave whatever is said in this room as well.
And please note that the only exception to that rule would be if there's information that comes up about somebody being endangered, or if you guys yourselves are in danger in any way, we are obligated to tell our adult advisor about it.
If there's any discussion about harm that's happening to one of the people involved in the conflict, or that's going to happen to someone else, that kind of thing would have to be reported.
Is that making sense to everyone?
Sure.
Yes.
The step after that would be to set some guidelines for how everyone's going to interact with one another during the mediation.
So before we begin, there are a few guidelines that we'd like to cover between the both of you. And those guidelines are to be respectful of everyone's opinion, to not interrupt each other while the other is talking, to be entirely honest.
You also ask the people involved in the mediation, is there anything else, any other guidelines you'd like us to set here so that you feel comfortable working through this issue?
And is there any other rules you guys would like to include?
No, those guidelines are fine.
Yeah.
If you have something that you're dying to say and you're worried you're going to forget it if you don't jump in, here's some scrap paper. You can take some notes on it, and then when it's your turn to speak, you'll remember what you wanted to say.
Just so you know, we'll keep in line with confidentiality, and we will discard them after this meeting. No one will see them, so feel free to write down anything if you want.
And then it's really important to get agreement from everyone.
Charlotte, do you agree to these guidelines?
Yes, those are fine.
And Ivan, do you agree to these guidelines?
Yeah.
You choose one person to start first. You might want to ask, is there someone who really would like to go first? Make sure you clear it with the other person.
Which one of you guys would like to start first?
I'll go.
Is that all right with you?
Sure.
Okay, just so you know, you'll get a chance to speak as well. So.
And it's really important after each person speaks, especially when they're first telling their side of what's going on, to summarize back to them what you heard.
So, I just feel like, why is she entitled to the whole field every day just because she's on the soccer team?
Okay, so what I'm getting from you is that you and your friends go out to the field wanting to play football, but you are never able to do so because Charlotte is practicing soccer on the field as well, and this has happened on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that serves many purposes. One is, if people are angry with one another, they're probably going to use harsher words. So when you repeat back, you can tone it down so it's not so offensive, perhaps, to the other person. So the last thing they heard is a more neutral version. So it hopefully won't make them angry, because sometimes when you hear people saying really harsh things, that just builds your anger up again. The other thing is it makes sure everyone's on the same page, that they said what they meant to say and that you heard correctly what they meant to say. And then turn it over to the other person, ask them for their side of the story.
Charlotte, would you like to tell your side?
Yes. Well, this actually has only happened one other time.
So once you've kind of been able to get both sides of the story, and you as the mediator and your co-mediator are really listening for what are the issues that we hear coming out in this mediation. And like we talked about before, since conflict is about needs that aren't being met, underneath what they're saying is the problem. What are the needs that they're trying to meet? And a lot of mediators like to take notes. Again, you'll mention that those are also going to be discarded. It's helpful for a lot of people to take notes because it's hard to remember everything that someone has said. And then what you want to do is you might want to probe a little bit more if you feel like you haven't gotten everything. Ask open-ended questions, encourage them to give you more information, use those active listening skills that you've learned as a peer mediator, summarize what you think are the main issues, and also really validate the people and what their perspective on the issue is. So if you get to a point in a mediation where it seems like they're not going anywhere, they keep rehashing the same things, maybe they're even starting to get angrier because there's no forward movement, or you just feel stalled in some way, you can do something called a caucus, where each co-mediator takes one of the disputants to the side and just talks to them about what's going on, still keeping your mediator role of being impartial, but sometimes people feel more comfortable sharing something with you as the mediator and they don't want to say it in front of the other person. So you can walk them through what some of those things might be before you come back together, and that might provide some movement to go forward with a mediation. It is really important, though, to make sure that you check with that person before coming back to the mediation what you are able to share, so even staying confidential there. And make sure not to kind of get buddy-buddy with that person, because then it might affect how the other person, when you come back, views you and your impartiality. But to be very respectful, of course. Then once everyone's agreed on what the issues are and how it's affecting the people involved, how it's emotionally and otherwise affecting them, then you can start the brainstorming process.
If he could come to the field maybe on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'll be at the field Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So brainstorm, tell people, say whatever solution comes to your mind, even if you think it might sound ridiculous. Sometimes that sparks creativity to come up with something that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And then once you've come up with the various solutions that might work, talk back and forth among the people. Will this work for you? What will work for you? What won't work for you? Is there anything else that we haven't thought of that maybe could work? Once you get to the point where you've come up with a list of solutions, then you move on to writing the agreement. So you'll have a contract, and what you want to do is write down everything that the people have agreed to. And you want to be as specific as possible. And then once you've written it out, make sure to read through it again, let them look at it, and that they actually agree to what's written out. And then everyone signs. And one thing you should always do before you actually end the mediation is say, okay, so we've worked all this stuff out. If you haven't really resolved everything with one another, though, this could cause more conflict down the line. So is there anything else that you want to talk about? This is the time to do it, so that we can make sure that your relationship can work once you're out of this room. So give them another chance to talk about things. And then after they sign the contract, let them know, we're going to check in with you in a week or so. Let's meet at such and such a time just to check in and see how things are going. And that way you can make sure that the contract that they've come up with one another is still working for them. And if it's not, they could try and remediate it. And it's really important to remind them about confidentiality, so, specific details, try to keep those to yourself and not share them with one another, because that might cause more conflict. Let people know that the conflict's been resolved so that rumors don't start. And really thank them, because it takes a lot of hard work and willingness to work things out to get through this process. And so thank them for being willing to do that and to work with one another. And let them know they can always come to the mediation program if they have anything in the future.